recording started because I'm going to upload this to YouTube later if all goes well. Yeah, my screen's looking like recursion. Yes, it is. So yeah, just go ahead and ask any question. It can be Java, any programming language. I'll clear up confusion for you. Computer science in general. By the way, does the video look and sound okay? That's my girlfriend texting me. I'll let her know I'm live. All right, got a question. I'll get to it in 1 sec. Okay. We should have less annoying things in the way. Okay. Matthew, it's actually 12 a.m. there. Wow. 12 in the morning? It's midnight? Wow. Well, thank you so much for letting me interrupt your good night's sleep. Welcome, Mohammed. Welcome, New Deuce. All right, let's start the questions. Abdisamad, am I saying that right? Abdisamad asks, why do we need methods in Java? So methods are very useful because you can run a bunch of code with just one line. And I'll show you what I mean. I'll just make some class here. I realize this is pretty... I'll make the text easy for you to see. So I'll just make a new class. I'll call it live Q&A with a main method. We'll zoom out here so you can see everything. So methods are important because eventually you're going to write a lot of code in here, the main method, because the program doesn't do anything unless you have code in the main method. So if I wanted to print hi, it's got to be in the main method. But eventually, if I wanted to say like, she says I'm sorry, that's funny. If I wanted to make a video game like Call of Duty or League of Legends, that's a lot of code, right? So methods let you break down a ton of code. You wouldn't want to make an entire video game inside the main method, for example. That would be like millions of lines of code. So a method lets you run multiple lines of code with just one line and helps you break things down. So instead of printing out hi, say maybe 3 times, you can make a method with some keywords, and these keywords just kind of modify it to act how we want. Like static void won't return anything. Print hi. And then instead of putting all these lines of code in the main method, what we can do is just put them in here and then call the method with just one line of code. And this really helps you break down big programming projects so that your main method is cleaner and things just make more sense. Methods help you organize your code. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, Abdisamad and everyone else, of why we need methods in Java? Welcome to the live, Ann Min Chu, Scott, Ferdinands, and Martin. How's it going? I hope that video helped you, by the way, Martin. The one by New Boston. He's really good. He helped get me through college. The New Boston YouTube channel. He explains things really, really simply for me. Welcome, Jack. Abissamon, I'm glad that helped you out. Muhammad understands. Good. Because if you had like millions of lines of code in the main method and you tried to look through it, it would be really hard. So you could break down those millions of lines of code into like 1,000 methods, and you could reuse them. You can reuse those methods too. So now I can just do this as many times as I want. So methods are for reusability and organizing. All right, looks like people understand that and it makes sense. Yeah, Bucky is great, just old now. Bucky is the name of the guy from the New Boston YouTube channel. He's been doing it for over 10 years. He's got a lot of good videos, but they can be a little dated. Welcome, Teresa. How's it going? I'll move on to the next question. If you just joined, this Q&A is just for any coding related question you have. It could be Java programming, clearing up confusion on small syntax things, computer science things in general, really anything. Doesn't have to be Java either. But if it needs code, I'll live code it for you and make sure you understand. So I'll move on to the next question. Here's a good question from Lawrence. How do you stay motivated when coding? As soon as I run into an issue, I just give up. That is a very good question because it's really hard to stay motivated, especially with this topic, because professors tend to go by really fast, online courses. Programming is a very fast-paced thing. It just kind of tends to be that way, the way people teach it. But to really understand it, you gotta learn it simply the first time, understand it right the first time. So staying motivated is like, that's a good question, and I know the answer. To stay motivated, you just gotta think about the end goal. Think about what you want to achieve. So, like, if you're in, if you want to stay motivated during a big project, for example, and it's like 10 steps, you got through steps 1 and 2, but you're confused on the second part of step 2. That happened to me so often. I would just get really demotivated. But to stay motivated, just think about the end goal. Think about like the A, or the light at the end of the tunnel. If you're doing a project for yourself, like you're making an app and you're learning a new programming language, just think about how cool it's going to be when you publish it to the App Store and you get to share it with your friends. I failed so much, guys. I failed so much at computers. The reason I'm okay at it now is just because I've done it so much. I've seen what works and seen what doesn't work. That was one of my tips in the 7 tips on how to think like a programmer. You're not like born super smart, or it doesn't, for some people it can just click, but most of the time you're just gonna see what works, see what doesn't work, and then you'll feel more confident. And when you get demotivated, just know that it's gonna take time, and there's always that light at the end of the tunnel when you finish your program. And just reach out to peers. So I hope I'm explaining that okay. To stay motivated, just keep the big goal in mind. Don't stress too much about the small details, because that really won't get you anywhere. I hope I sort of rambled. I hope that was kind of an okay answer, Lawrence. Is that okay? Does that make sense on how to stay motivated? To keep the end goal in mind and reach out for help, and don't get too stuck. Like, don't waste hours and hours slamming your head against a wall if you don't get it the first time. Take little breaks. All right, I'll move on to the next question. Well, we've got lots. Camille's first question is, how exactly do methods in classes work? Cool, so this is another methods question. Methods in classes. Okay, so here we have a class, and it's got a main method. A class is a blueprint for an object. So our class is live Q&A. We could make a live Q&A object like this. And then do stuff with it, but nothing's inside, so it won't do anything. But if we add like a variable here, now, since the class is the blueprint for the object, and the blueprint, all it has is variables and methods, it's got this variable x. So now we can do a.x. If we printed out a.x, we get what this class knows, and it knows a variable x, that's 0, so it prints out 0. So how do methods in classes work? Well, a class is just variables and methods. It's that simple. Like, I was confused on classes for literally like 5 years. Like, I could get by in my classes, like my programming courses, with like kind of struggling through what classes meant. But it really boils down to variables and methods. This one has a main method, which just runs code. It doesn't affect the class. But a method in a class works exactly the same as a variable in the class. So if we had a public static void method, these are just keywords. Don't worry too much about them right now. It just means other files can see the method, you can call the method without making an object, and it doesn't return anything. I'll just do print hi again. And then print out. Hi. So now, what we can do, since this is static, we can say print hi. So this is a method here inside of this class. Now, and you just call it how you would normally. And this is getting kind of a little clustered here. So I'm going to make a main class with the main method. So now it's separated. The main method is in the main class, and it's not cluttering up our live Q&A class. Boom. So this live Q&A class has one variable and one method. So what we can do, a class is a blueprint for an object, so we can make as many live Q&A objects as we want. So we'll just make one. And now if we do a dot, we can see it has an x variable, and if we scroll down, we can see print hi. So we can do a dot print hi, run it, and it works. So a method in a class works just like a variable in a class. When you make the object and put a period, you can see it. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question, or did I go off on a little tangent? That was from Camille, right? Camille, how exactly do methods in classes work? Did that answer your question, Camille? Said so far so good. Does that make sense to everybody? What classes, how methods in classes work? Let me know in the chat if that makes sense. Or if it doesn't make sense, I'll go back over it. All right. Well, there's a lot of questions here. I'm going to assume it makes sense. He said so far so good. I'll move on to the next question. Camille says understood. Perfect. Teresa says you make it easier for you to understand. That's awesome. Great. Let's move on to the next question. Welcome to the live Q&A. Just if you're new here, just ask any coding related question and I'll get through it one by one and we'll get through as many as we can. So, Peter says, we have two algorithms for binary heap, but for linear time binary heap, should the output be different compared to a non-percolate up-down? It's been a long time since I've seen this stuff, so I might have to look this up. Two algorithms for binary heap. I'm not sure I understand the question, Peter. Could you expand on your question, Peter? I'm sorry, I don't understand it. Oh, see you, Camille. Thanks for stopping by and thanks for asking a question. Welcome to the live Q&A, Rita and Cole and Joseph. Ask any coding related question. I'm going down one by one and we'll try to get through as many as we can. It can be like I'll do a live coding for you. It can be in Java or any programming language or just computer science questions in general, like Lawrence said. Asked how to stay motivated. I answered that. And if all goes well, I'll upload this back to YouTube so you can look at it again. So Peter, I see your question, but I don't understand what you're asking. So could you expand on it just a little bit? It says we have two algorithms for binary heap, but for linear time binary heap. Should the output be different compared to non-percolate up-down? Yeah, I don't know what that means. I remember working with binary heap and I remember this looks familiar, but I don't know what the question is. So maybe Peter, once you comment, I'll come back to it, but I'll just keep moving on. Cool. Mohammed says, can we see memory addresses in Java as we can see it in C++ using pointers? Memory addresses. I don't remember using Java for memory much, although I'm sure there's a way to do it. I know that C's thing, C++'s big thing, was you had access to the memory directly, and that's what made C++ so powerful, because you could use this concept of pointers. I do not think there is not. This is what I remember from college. There is no concept of pointers in Java. And that's why they had to teach us C++. But I'm no genius. I still Google everything. So I'm going to Google that for you. And your question was, we see memory addresses in Java. Memory address Java. Oh, okay. So I think... Okay, so... Yes. There's no concept of pointers, but there's still ways to get the memory address. And so, I hope I'm doing this right. But like, if you make an object, say like a scanner object, We've used scanners before. Scanners help us get input from user or file. We'll import that. If we print out the scanner, throw system.in in here for the console window so it doesn't give an error. If we print out the scanner object, it gives this, which looks like a bunch of gibberish. But it looks like parameters of the object. No, I'm sorry. This is something different. I'm printing out an object, but I want to print out an array as an example. So if I had an array 2, 3 in there, and then print out A, see what happens. We get this. This is the memory address of the A integer array. And this is a common way to find the memory address. I think you can also do a dot, and then there are methods that let you get the memory address, or like hash code. Let's see what that does. Hash code. And then you can find it that way. But at the end of the day, yes, there are methods that will help you find memory in Java. Did that answer your question? Mohammed? Hope that makes sense, Mohammed. Move on to the next question here. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're having a great day, a great Wednesday. And I think Peter... Yeah. Let's keep moving on. Lots of questions. I should do these faster. I'm sorry. Teresa says, can you tell how to delete and search in vector? Vector. Like a... does Java have vectors? Vector. Yes. Really haven't used vectors much. Let's see what the question is. Can you tell how to delete and search in a vector? Well, a vector is just an object, it looks like. So we can make a vector here. Vector v equals new vector. Import it. And we'll see if we can do stuff. Let's add maybe some integers to it to get it set up. And how I can just figure this out is I just made it and then I did v dot. And then that just gives me a whole list of things I can do. It has add, clear, get. So to add or delete and search from a vector, you just use one of the methods. It's super simple. Just do v dot and then pick one and practice. So we'll print out v, the vector. We've got 3 and 2 in there. So let me make sure the question was right and I'm answering this correctly. How to delete and search in a vector? Well, we can do v dot, scroll through. We've got, let's see if there's delete in here. Usually they're called like remove. Yeah, remove. So you can remove by the object, it looks like. The remove method here, you can pass in an object into the parentheses, and it has a little message here on how to use it. Removes the first occurrence of the specified element. So we could just do v.remove, specify an element. And now if we do it, we get an error. Interesting. Oh, because it thinks that this is an index, but that one was an object. So maybe I can cast this to an integer. Programming's all about trial and error. Nope. So it looks like we've got to use a different one, like the index. Let's just do the index, for example. We'll move at index 0. Now we're just left with 2. So to delete from a vector, just use the remove method. And to search through a vector, we can do elements. Let's see. Get looks like a good one. We'll do v.get, and then let's see, index 1. Get index 1. And we'll actually print this out. Boom, 2. And so to search through it, you can put this in a for loop and say if it's equal to the value you want, then get it. Does that make sense, Teresa? How to delete and search in a vector? Mohammed, yes, thank you, good. I'm glad that cleared up your confusion. Teresa, let me know in the chat if that helped you out. Welcome to the live Q&A. Everybody new, just ask any coding related question and I'll go through it. And if it requires coding, like it's not like theoretical, I'll do a live coding for you and make sure you understand it. I hope that makes sense on how to add and search through a vector. Just use the methods from the object. We'll move on to the next question. Ooh, so many questions. What's the difference between methods and classes? Great question, Lawrence. Great question. There are so many terms. Oh my God. Computer science is notorious for confusing the hell out of students with all these terminologies. All these terms. Like, what the heck? Classes, import, object, vector, static, void. Like, this, it's like, not only do you have to learn how to program, you also need to learn the language of the language. You know what I mean? So all these terms are super confusing. They confuse the crap out of me, but yes. Let's go over the difference between classes and methods. A class is a blueprint for an object, and a method is a way to organize code and reuse code. So a class is a list of variables and methods for the object. So we've got a variable here and a method here, and that'll print hi. Hi. So this class has a variable x and a method print hi. And so a class makes methods. So we can make, a class makes objects. So we can make a live Q&A object from this live Q&A class. And we can just do that in a main method here. I already typed it out. Live Q&A A equals new live Q&A. Now we have an object A that knows X and print hi. So if we run it, then it'll do what's in the method. So a class is just variables and methods. So therefore, methods just go inside classes. And a method just runs a bunch of code. So we could do a bunch of different stuff. We could just code some gibberish here and just really whatever. Methods hold actions that the class can do. So if this was like a dog class, I'll rename it to dog, then this class would have things that the dog can do. I'm just going to rename the file so it makes sense. Delete scanner because we don't need it. And I'll start from scratch. Variables are what the dog can do. Variables are what the dog knows. Methods are what the dog knows how to do. So a dog knows maybe a breed, the breed. So we can have a string breed. And we don't have to declare it to anything, so I'll just leave it there. You could if you wanted to. But to make a method, let's say bark, because dogs can bark. Public void bark. The reason I didn't add static is because we're going to be doing the dog.bark, so we don't need static. Bark. Print out bark. So method, the dog knows how to bark. Bark method just runs the code bark. And then you can make a dog here. And do that bark method now. Does that make sense, Lawrence? The difference between classes and methods. A class has variables and methods inside of it. And a method is just a chunk of code you call with one line. And that chunk of code does a specific task. You can have as many methods as you want inside of a class. Does that make sense, Lawrence? Does that make sense, everybody? Here we go. So classes are nouns, people, places, things. Yes. And methods are the verbs. Run, y'all, dance. Yes. That's another way to look at it. That's perfect. That's a perfect, yes, that's how it works. That's exactly it. So here, I'll do another example for you. And hold on, what else did you say? It said methods are the verbs, adjectives. Yeah. Exactly. So I'll do another example. A noun would be like a dancer. A dancer. And I'll just rename the file. The dancer knows maybe style, the style of dance. And a method would be like breakdance. Maybe this is one type of dance you can do. So to breakdance be the verb. A dancer, noun, can breakdance. I really like how you said that, Lawrence. That makes a lot of sense. And I remember my teachers saying it, phrasing it that way too. It says thanks. Run, talk, dance. Damn autocorrect. Great. I'm glad that makes sense to you, Lawrence. That's a great question. I'm sure we helped a lot of people just right there. Next question. Can you also tell some good books and online resources to learn Java from basic to most advanced? Yes, I have some at the top of my head. w3schools.com is amazing. I even use some of these to help format my tutorials because the examples are just so good. Java. They're really simple, like you know all the websites, all the like Stack Overflow documentation and stuff. Like, it's impossible to learn from those as a beginner, but I really feel like W3 Schools with Java is one good resource. I'll leave that here. Also, the New Boston YouTube channel. I know I've shouted him out a few times, but the New Boston, he's got a lot of good coding tutorials. As far as books, there are a few books I had on Amazon. And I can I'll look through those right now. Yeah, I'll look through those right now on my Discord community. By the way, if you want to join my Discord, you can. We just have announcements and help with coding questions and everything. So let me see if I can have a link. Okay, copy. Let's see if this works. If you want to join my Discord, you can here. I'm just posting resources. Java books, Python books. Yeah, I'll post all these books. I handpicked these. I went through them all. I hope this doesn't ruin the chat. Is it a bad idea to post all these books? I'll just post the Java books, I guess. Java books. And then I have some courses I looked through. Java courses. These are all the best ones I could find. So check those out if you're interested. I hope that helps. Peter, I know you posted a question earlier. I was a little confused on it. So I'm going to go to this now. Make sure I help me understand it. I got a question on my algorithm and data structures to code a linear time binary heap. And then I have a picture on how the array should look like after the process is done. Okay, so I can provide some guidance on that here. Upload to Imgur. Here, I'll do the question first. I got a question on my algorithm data structure to code a linear time binary heap. Okay. It's been a while since I've done that. I'm gonna look that up. Linear time binary heap. Heap. So I need to refresh myself on what a heap is. So I'm going to Google heap Java. Heap data structure. Ah, yes. Heaps. Search trees. My data structures class was horrible, which is why I don't remember this. But these are really simple algorithms. It's all about just following the right one. Yeah, Peter, you can send me the thing. I'll look at it. I'll do my best to answer it quickly so I can go through more questions. But yeah, send it over to me. You can post a link here if you want. And we'll go through it together. Java implementation. Yeah, I hated this crap. I hated this so much. I can see why they want you to use it. But I think it's overkill to implement it yourself. I think it just confuses people a lot more. Because if people don't understand variables, methods, keywords in the first place, how can you expect them to implement a heap, you know? Peter, you could just put a link in the chat. I think that would be fine. Link to the file. We're waiting on a link to making a linear search tree heap. And then I'll try to get to more questions. Oh man. It's so far up. I have to go through these faster. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. Okay, Peter, do you know how to email it? You could just email the file to me. Here. Just email the file to that email. And I'll see if I can answer another question in the meantime. Oh, crap. Really? I can't scroll up more than that? Ah. It's okay. I don't think we missed many questions. Okay, Justin, I'm going to do your question real quick. Oh, God. It's going to cut off some of the questions. Congratulations, Cole, on your CSC final. I know that's a huge relief to be done. Okay, I'll do this question by Scott. When do you use .size, .length, and .length without parentheses? So, let's see. .size, .length, .length. Okay, so those are all essentially the same thing, but you do them on different objects / variables. So we'll start with the first one, .size. These are for arrays and or strings and other data structures too. So if we had an array, we wanted to print out, just to use these examples, we do a dot, and it gives you a list of what you can do. And it has length here. So for arrays, you use a dot length without parentheses. You can remember that because variables, because it's a integer array, it's a variable. It's not an object. Objects have variables and methods. Most of the time you use methods for an object. And methods have little parentheses. But since this is a variable, you can just, length is like a property of integer arrays, or any arrays. So length without parentheses is for integer arrays. Sorry. Any array. Why am I saying integer array? I don't know. If we do one with like a string, and print out b dot, we can see a bunch of string methods, but we've got length here. And let's see if we have size too. Yeah, if you type size. Can't do that. So for strings, you use length with parenthesis. For arrays, you do length without parenthesis. Just show you this works. And it gives you the length. This array is length 3. The string length is 4. And for the last one, .size would be like for data structures like array list, for example. I believe. Array list. We'll add some things to it. Maybe characters just to be cool. And put the elements in here. These are char. Or do we have to spell out character? And now if we do c dot, we don't see length without parentheses here. We don't see length method here, but we do see, what size is not? Yeah, size. We see size here. Boom. We do it. It's a size 2 because there's 2 in it. So length without parentheses is arrays. Length with parentheses is strings. And size with parentheses is like basically any data structure I'm pretty sure has the size method. Like ArrayList or queue, stack, what have you. Does that make sense? And then I'll get on to Peter's binary heap question. Yeah, Cole says dot size is used for array list, dot length is used for arrays. Yeah, I think you can also, can you do that? Yeah, so length without parentheses is for arrays. Does that make sense, everybody? Cool. I'm glad that helped you, Scott. Yeah, it's really just memorizing it. You can, here's a tip. You don't have to memorize this. You don't have to memorize it. Just got to think a little bit. So for a variable, arrays are variables, so you don't have to put the parentheses. Parentheses are for like objects and methods, but this has nothing to do with objects or methods. It's just length. So that's how you know that one. For strings, you don't really get the size of a string. You get the length. Does that make sense? So if I had the word dog, I can say it's 3 letters long. Long, 3 letters long, and length. People don't usually say, what's the size of the word? They say, how long is the word? So strings are length with parentheses, since it's an object. And then size is like a size of a list. Hope that's helpful. Okay, let's go to Peter's thing. What? Error in my inbox? Are you kidding me? We're good. Alex Lauren Lee. That's my name. Peter, here we go. I will open it. This looks pretty long. Algorithms data structures class. So we're 3, hashing and trees. So you're in data structures. Got these tasks. Implement the following. So they want you to write code to do this. Dang. I'm gonna be honest, this looks like it sucks. I had to go through the exact same crap that you did, Peter. And it sucks. It really sucks. Cool. Thanks, Scott. I'm glad it helped you. Let's see if I can get the question. Question on how to code a linear time binary heap. Okay. Search this linear. That looks like this first one. I'll just read through this, and so we can all kind of understand how to approach problems like this. Task 1. Implement in Java. Just means you got to program it. A binary heap using the following example. A binary heap, well, let's dissect that. Binary means 2. Heap is a data structure. And honestly not sure why it's called heap. Don't really know what that word means. But it's a data structure that has things to do with 2. Using the following example. A. Present the results of inserting these numbers. A bunch of numbers. They're just integers, it looks like. One at a time into an initially empty binary heap. So we got this object. It's called a binary heap. It's a data structure object. And we want to present the results after we insert a bunch of stuff into it. But right now it's empty. B. Present the results of using the linear time algorithm to build a binary heap using the same input. So this one is using a linear time algorithm. Okay, so we read the things, kind of know what it's asking you to do. Let's look at the example shown. The graphical presentation of the results presented below presents results in an array. We got 1 and 2, and this shows how it will be organized from this input. Got 1 at the top. That looks like the lowest number. Got 3 on the left, 2 on the right. 2 is between 3. Okay. We've got the middle numbers and then the bigger numbers. So I should be looking at B, right? Right, Peter? Task 1B, cool. B. Present the results of using linear time algorithm. Okay, so linear time algorithm is just some algorithm you look up. Looks like we've got 1 at the top, 3, 2, the middle ones, and then Okay, so let's just look up the algorithm. Well, first, do you understand the algorithm? Do you need help understanding the algorithm or implementing it, like coding it? And sorry, I really realize I'm taking a long time in this. I want to get to as many questions as possible. So what I would do for this, Peter, is Google it, and then I'll show you kind of where to go from there. I'm sorry, Peter. I'm really. You know everything, but you got the same output on both. It's a min heap. So since you've implemented it, you're getting the same output on both. That means there's just one area, one small fix in your code to change the algorithm. Min heap implementation Java. Min heap. So that sounds like a problem with one of these small logic things. So if you've implemented it, but you're getting the same result, then it'll really just be one of these small fixes you got to focus on. Just look at the differences and just change it slightly. It could be, this sounds like one of the things where, like, oh, it was a minus instead of a plus, or oh, I was dividing the wrong number. It just sounds like a small logic thing you gotta find. And I'm sorry I can't help you out more. It's been a long time. Do you have to resort it or what? Resort it. Well, it sounds like if you have a swap method. No, not swap method. In one of the big logic chunks, I think you just have to change a small bit of logic on when to swap. Does that make sense? I don't want to spend too much time on this because I'm really not an expert on data structures and algorithms. But it sounds like you've got most of it. It's just a small logic problem. I'm going to move on to the next one if that's okay. If you have a last question, Peter, I can try to answer it quickly. I feel like I'm not being very productive. I did my best. I'll move on to the next question, start helping more people. Would you ever consider teaching us how to use graphic class for game stuff or something like that? Maybe in the future. Yeah, maybe in the future. I kind of want to start getting away from just Java, starting to do some other computer science stuff. So yeah, maybe in the future, Mark. Thanks, Peter. I did my best. I'm just an example of the poor computer science education system. Thank you for your question. Really great question. Regine asked, why do we use abstract classes? Cool. Great. Abstract classes. Let's do abstract classes. An abstract class is a list of variables and methods that you can use to make new objects. So if we can just say we have our dancer class. One variable it knows is the style of dance, and they know how to break dance. But we'll just print out. Yeah. Breakdancing. So we've got a regular class here, and we can use it like a regular class. Dancer D equals new dancer. D.breakdance. Boom. That's a regular class. Just lets you make an object with variables and methods. An abstract class, if we put abstract here, that changes this into an abstract class. Now, we see an error in the main method because it's abstract. Abstract means it's like an idea. It's not the real thing. It's not the real class. It's just sort of this abstract idea of a class. And you use abstract classes to make other classes. So, we can do, let's make another one. Example 1. We could do, actually, let me make sure this is right before I move on. Beautiful. So we just type extends here to extend an abstract class. Now we've got a dancer abstract class, and we've got example1, which extends dancer. Now example1 knows literally everything from this. So if we made example1 now, we can still break dance, even though there's no code inside this class. Since we extend dancer, we know everything. Does that make sense? And I'll get to the real meat of abstract classes in a second here, but I want to make sure that makes sense. Does that make sense to everybody? Everybody listening right now? Andrew Jean, does it make sense that if you do extends on another class, you can still use it? So we can still do breakdance from example1, even though there's no code. But since it extends dancer, it inherently knows all of this. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. Mark Manning says, yep. All right. So let's get into the meat of abstract classes. So an abstract class, abstract just means, well, an abstract class is just a list of variables and methods to make other classes. You could do this without abstract. We can still extend dancer, and it still works the same. But the big difference is that abstract means you can't make an object with it. We can't do dancer d equals new dancer because it's an abstract class. It's an idea, abstract. It's some abstract idea of what a class should be, but it's not an actual class. So you can't use it. And that's the big thing. You can't use an abstract class like a regular class. The only reason this exists is to be a list of variables and methods to make other classes. Does that make sense? You can't use an abstract class like a regular class. The only reason they exist is to be a blueprint for other classes. And this allows for a lot of object-oriented programming things. But that's really the technical thing of what you need to know. Cool, Rita says she's taking notes. That's great. Yes. Welcome, Abdul Rahman. Mark Manning says, so an abstract class can only be utilized if another class extends it. Yeah. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And you can't do implements, or maybe you can. I feel like you can't. Yeah. You can't do implements dancer because implements is only for an interface. So you got to do extends. Yeah. The only reason abstract classes exist is to make other classes with it. Hope that makes sense. I'll move on to the next question. Sounds like people like that. And how are abstract classes different from interfaces? I made a video on this, and I'll go over it again. An abstract class versus interface. I'm just trying to make sure I say this right. So we know what abstract classes are now. You can't use them like real classes, but they just help you make other classes. And you do that using extends. An interface you would change this from abstract to, actually, you change this from abstract class into interface. You got to fix some things here. You have to implement what's in an interface. We have to set it. Hit pop. And then it doesn't have to, it's not implemented. So notice what I had to do there. It was complaining because I had code inside. An abstract class lets you implement methods like how we had before. And yeah, you can treat an abstract class just like a class, just like any class, except you can't make objects from it. But an interface is literally just a list of variables and methods that cannot be implemented. Does that make sense? You can't put code inside of methods for an interface. It's literally just a list. So instead of extending Dancer, we have to do implements. And implements means put code inside. It took me a long time to figure out what implements means. Implements just means put code inside and make it do stuff. We see an error here because now it says we must implement the inherited abstract method Dancer.break. So we have to click add unimplemented methods. This is a little tag that says it overrides. So this method isn't implemented, but we implement it here and we override this functionality, even though there's no functionality there. But now we have to do it here. So the big difference between abstract classes and interfaces is interfaces you don't implement the methods. Interface is a strict list, and you have to use implements and then implement them. But an abstract class, you can implement the methods in here, and then you do extends. So interface, implements, and abstract class extends. Does that make sense? That makes sense for everybody. Yeah. Yeah, it's super confusing, guys. But, I mean, they teach it confusing, but it's really not confusing. You just gotta see what works and see what doesn't work. If you want more in depth, you can see the video. Alex Lee, that's me. Yeah, I'll post both of them. Here's the abstract classes one. And then here's the interface one. Example. And these will go in more depth for you. Cool. I'll go through more questions. And I'll try to wrap up by 1 o'clock here, because I know people have to go back to work and stuff. And I hate how it won't let me see previous comments, and I'm sorry if I missed your question. I'm just getting to the ones that I can. Any sites that give simple programs to build? Yes. And I can just look those up. I've seen them before. And that's one thing that I'm trying to do on my channel, is provide simple Java programs that and walk through like how things work, so you get good practice in. And there are like some websites here. But they're not very good. Palindrome. This one has some. simple projects. Yeah, a lot of these will just be like text programs. I mean, you can just do a simple Google search for simple Java programs and there will be some. But what I recommend is just looking at the ones I have. I have lots of programming projects for beginners. I have a playlist here with a bunch. I've got 13.
If you're like me.
And I'll actually just share this playlist. Let me see. How do I share a playlist? Alex Lee projects. I've got one to reverse a string. God dang it. It's 2019, Alex. You should know how to share a playlist. Programs for practice. I'll just copy this link. Maybe that works. Lawrence, here are some simple Java programs. Copy. Yeah, that should do it. And if you want more practice, just look at those practice programs. I have some really good ones, especially the tic-tac-toe one, if you want a more advanced one. They may have just showed the video, but I do have a playlist on my channel you can look at too. Cool. Trucking along. Going to more questions. Kurt. Oh yeah, Kurt, I missed your question because of the stupid Facebook thing. I'll do it now. I was just asking on aggregation and composition. Let's do aggregation and composition together. Composition in Java. It's been a while, so I'm just gonna refresh my mind. So these look like relationships. Oh, so this is object-oriented programming. Java example. I'll walk through this and make sure you understand it and sort of emphasize on what you need to know for aggregation and composition. These are both for object-oriented programming. Aggregation is a special form of association. Oh God, I hate websites that start like this with these big words. It's a relationship between two classes. So we got two classes and we're just relating them to one another. But you might think, how do we relate it? It's really just an idea. Which classes are associated with each other, which ones are related. It's a relationship between two classes. However, it's directional, which means it's strictly a one-way association. This represents a has-a relationship. For example, consider two student classes. We'll walk through this together, and I'll code it for you. Two classes, students and address. Every student has an address. Let's think about that. Every student has an address. A student is a class to make student objects. An address is a class that makes address objects. A student, let's think about a student in real life. You're a student. Well, you're a student, you have to live somewhere, right? You could either live at your parents' house or live on campus, but the fact is you live somewhere. So you have an address. You have one. You have an address. A student has an address in real life. So it's the exact same thing in programming. A student class has a student, or a student address, sorry. A student class has an address class. has a relationship. Aggregation is has a. But an address doesn't necessarily have to have a student in it. For example, my parents' house. There's no students in that house. You know what I mean? So a student has an address, but an address doesn't necessarily have a student. And that's aggregation. Address. Yes. And let's do this example real quick. I'll just copy and paste this in here. We'll make a new class called student. I'll delete these other ones. Oops, that was address. Class. I'll just do this quickly. Address. We've got a student class and an address class. The student has things like a name and an address. I'll delete this. It's got a string name and an address, student address. The reason we know address is because there's an address class in here which we conveniently named. Now what does an address have? Well, an address has like street number, city, name. Cool. The reason I'm not adding all this code, this is just the constructor, and we don't really need this for this example. It's just overcomplicating things. Oops. So you see what we did here? The student has a name and has an address. See? Address. That's this address object. But an address has a street number, city, state, and country. Student isn't in here. An address doesn't have student, but a student has address. That's called aggregation. Does that make sense? That's really the core takeaway. I'm sorry, I'm not very experienced doing live, so I'm doing my best to explain things simply. Does that make sense to everybody? Everybody in here? The student has an address, but the address doesn't have a student. And then for composition, part of. So composition is when one cannot exist without the other. Really, that makes sense. Cool. Jeremy, welcome. We're actually wrapping up here, but I'm glad you could stop by. The student has an address. It's aggregation. Now composition, what do you think of with composition? It's composed of something. It needs it. So composition is when two entities are highly dependent on each other. An address isn't highly dependent on a student. An address can just be there without a student. But let's do a composition example. And this will be the last question, and I'll sort of fly through the rest. Job, person. Person. Job. So let's do person and job. I'm not seeing any good examples. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best here. Blah. Let's look at this example. A library's got a book. We've got a class book. And a library is a list of books. In the above example, library can have a number of books. So if the library gets destroyed, then all the books will be destroyed. That's why it's composition. Because a book cannot exist without a library. Does that make sense? I'm not going to code this one because I don't have it in me and I feel like I'm going to do it wrong. I'm just being honest. So this one, you see, just like we had a class student and a class address, this one has a class book and a class library. The class book just has things like title and author. Nothing related to the library. But the library has a list of books, and only books. The constructor uses the books, which means you can't have a library without books. It has to have books. The library is composed of books. Composition. It's composed of the other class. It's a composition relationship. Books are part of a library. Does that make sense? We'll go over the examples of aggregation and composition now. For aggregation implies a relationship where the child can exist independently of the parent. For example, bank and employee. You can delete the bank and employee still exists. Whereas composition implies a relationship where the child cannot exist independent of the parent. Aggregation is a student has an address. Composition is part of, books are part of a library. Composition is a strong association between classes, and aggregation is a weak association. So that's the difference between aggregation and composition. I hope that makes sense. And that ends the Q&A. Welcome, Jeremy and Carl. Sorry you missed it. I just wrapped up. But if all goes well, I'll be posting this to YouTube so you can watch through everything, all the questions. We talked about aggregation, composition, classes and methods, all sorts of stuff. Sorry. What's the next language I'm going to focus on? I don't know yet. It'll probably be Python or something like that because I really like that. Really like Python and doing other stuff that's not just Java. But right now, it's gonna be Java. I'm working on so much stuff right now, guys. It's crazy. I took off 3 days of work just to work on like an online course I'm doing. I thought I had an idea for an online course, but I'm rethinking everything. I have to like re-ask everybody on YouTube for survey stuff, and I'm just a mess right now. But I'm hoping today I'll have like a real day off, not burn myself out to death. Carl says, hey, made it to your stream. You're great, Alex. Your vids are really easy to understand. Thank you so much, Carl. Thank you so much. This is why I do it. This is why I do it. For people like you, to help you out, make your lives easier with programming, because coding is like one of the hardest things. Only like 0.5% or something of the world knows how to program. And so literally 0.5% of the population is controlling the internet, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Kind of crazy if you think about it. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap up the Q&A. Thank you so much to everybody who stopped up by. This is my first real Q&A. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Mark. Thank you. I'm not a professional live streamer, so thank you for saying it was a nice stream. I did my best. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. I'll see you later. Bye. Goodbye. Alex Lee signing off.
Well,